All right, well, welcome to Imperfect Together. We are back, and as you can see, Zach is not here. Zach got COVID.
Darn.
He had a baby, and then he had to go get COVID, so he's not here. But we got Micah here. Say hi,
Hey
Micah.
guys, how's it going?
Micah is a senior at Greenwood.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Tennis champion.
Tennis champ.
He's going to be in Wimbledon.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to have some fun today. So, question for you. Are you a rule follower?
I think
Answer honestly.
Honestly, I think I've bend the rules a little. Like, I'll follow a rule, but most of the time I'll bend it to where it's like not really.
Okay,
so
so give me some examples of some recent things you've done where you bent the rules or they were just straight up against the rules and you did it anyway.
Well, my mom has this rule where you cannot put Christmas stuff up early, and I just full on went out and did it.
You're that guy, huh?
Yeah, I love Christmas.
I love Christmas too, but not before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. I'm more like your mom.
Yep. As a kid, I always pushed my parents' buttons too.
Yeah.
Always
I
like,
could see that.
you know, nudging. I still do it. I still love pushing buttons.
What else? Anything more extreme that you've done? You rule breaker?
I don't know.
This is not going to land you in jail?
I have like gone places where my parents said not to go. So like I hung out with buddies and went somewhere where they said not to go.
Typical teenager.
Not anything bad,
Typical teenager
but, like,
right there.
Not anything bad, like extreme get to go to jail, but
Yep. So let me ask you this. All right, I want to get more stories out of you. This is kind of
more stories.
See what more stories we can get. Thinking back over the last, let's say, since you've been in high school, or even junior high or high school, what is the dumbest thing that you've done that was breaking the rules, or that you knew you shouldn't have done, but you did it anyways?
Well, so me and my buddies all had lunch together, which we have A and B lunch, and somehow we all got A lunch. So
Okay.
That's where that started, and every single day I would like throw something all the way across the cafeteria, and it would like work up every single time. So like the first thing was like a graham cracker, the second thing was like something else. Well, the last day I got to where I got an apple, and I chunked
an apple
all the way across the Union, nailed the kid, and I literally put my head down and acted like nothing happened.
Did they figure out it was you?
No, but they were searching everywhere, walking all the way down the
They
table.
got cameras in there?
No, they don't. I was honestly scared for my life.
Knock the kid out?
No, but it nailed the kid. Did it
explode?
It exploded. I was
Applesauce.
like, I cannot believe that. It nailed. I'm surprised that kid didn't get a concussion. It was
Chunking apples.
It flew at the kid. Oh my gosh.
That's yeah. I'd have been mad if you hit me with an apple.
You're not supposed to throw stuff in the lunchroom, so.
No, until food fights start. So why? So you said that you hid. You put your head down.
Yeah.
Why is it anytime that we do something wrong? Because this is like across the board. Every time we do something wrong, we hide. Right? Why do you think we do that?
So we don't get in trouble. So no one suspects it's you. You know, you don't want to be blamed for it.
Yeah.
Like whenever I knew I was in trouble as a kid, I'd go and run off so my parents couldn't find me. Because I knew the punishment was coming.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so we don't want to get caught.
No. That one would have been a big punishment too. So.
Yeah, I think so. I think, just think about that. That's just, if you think about kids, animals, whatever, like anytime you do something wrong, like you have a dog, you have dogs?
Yeah.
You ever had a dog where they did something wrong and then it just like went and hid?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, I have.
It's like not coming around. Like
you cannot find them.
Yeah. It's the only time they disappear.
Yes.
Is when they screw up.
Yeah.
So I think of even you go back to like Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
When they first screwed up.
They're like, oh no.
They're trying to hide. Like, I think you're gonna hide from God.
I actually got another one too.
Okay.
So this actually happened. What is it? This happened Sunday night. So I was, driving fast down the road. It was after church. And, I knew cops were out, and I always saw like cops pull out, and I was like pressing the brake, you know. So then I was going through Greenwood. There's never cops in Greenwood. Like I know where cops hide, and I was driving straight where cops weren't. So I was driving, and as I looked to my left, a cop went right past me, and I was like, oh crap. Then I saw his lights turn on, and I was like, dagnabbit. I was literally going 70 in a 55, and I was like, golly. So I pulled over. Luckily, the cop was literally the coolest cop I've ever met. And he said, you know what? I'll give you a warning, but just don't tell your parents. And I said, okay. And it was a verbal warning. So I got away with it.
You got lucky, dude.
I did get lucky. The dude was so cool. He was like, you knew. He said, you were probably like, oh crap, it's a cop. And I was like, yes, sir, I was. I said, I'm coming back from church. And he said, okay, I'll give you a slide. I was like, I guess that's God talking.
Thank you very much.
Guess that.
I'll slow down now.
I'll slow down. Since then, I've driven the speed limit. Because now they have a new system where they can see if you get warnings.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How do you know this?
Because he told me.
Oh.
He let me know. He said, just making sure we have a new system that says if you get a warning, they can still see it. I said,
so you're not getting a second one what he's saying.
Keep that
your
in
only
mind.
warning.
Yep.
No, so, yeah, I think we've obviously talked about some funny examples and whatever, but I think a lot of times when we screw up, there's more serious things that we do, whether it's we just feel guilty or shameful. There's a lot of things that we do, and it causes us almost to, just like Adam and Eve did, hide from God. Do you feel like we ever hide from God, like when we screw up?
Yeah, I honestly think we do. Because, I mean, like, I feel like whenever, like, we sin, we're like, we don't want to, admit it. Like, I never want to admit that I am wrong. Like, I hate admitting that I'm wrong about stuff. And so whenever I, like, sin, I'll always be like, well, I know he knows, but I don't want to, like, admit that I did it. So I'll hide because I don't want the consequences.
No, I think so. And I think, too, we almost become afraid of, like, what other people will think. So we end up, like, we stop, showing up to church maybe, or we start talking less, we pray less, and, like, just slowly we start separating ourselves from God almost because we're afraid to face Him. Yeah. Like it's the principal and we're about to get in big trouble or something. But I think that's probably the furthest thing from who God really is, though. I mean, why do you think we see God that way? Is there a reason?
I think maybe because He's like He's above us, so we have to kind of be like, which we shouldn't feel that way because He created us, but still we're like, it's kind of like a parent figure, like they birthed you, but well, your mom did, not your dad. My mom birthed me, and I'm still afraid of her. Like I'll still be like, and I'm 17.
Listen, there's a good, healthy fear. I think there's a good.
Yeah, I don't
it's
think
good to have good, healthy fears.
I don't think it's a
of
bad
God.
fear, but I just think it's like
But even like I've met a lot of people who, like let's say they do something really dumb. Like they know they messed up. They own up to it. Maybe there's consequences. Maybe there's not. But either way, they just feel so guilty about it that they kind of just start separating themselves from God. And I don't know if it's like, a misunderstanding of who God is. Yeah. Like that we think He's about to start throwing some lightning bolts at us or something,
us.
Or whatever. But, we forget about, the true nature of who God is and how He responds. And so we end up separating ourselves and making things worse instead of just embracing it and owning it. I mean, because I've done some dumb stuff. Sometimes you just got to own it and move on.
I think as a boy we all have.
Yeah, it's just part of who we are.
Part of.
So the past few weeks, so we'll tie this in with Zacchaeus because he's the guy I've been talking about the last few weeks. And what can you tell me, or what do you remember about Zacchaeus?
Well, he was a tax collector, and I knew everyone hated him because he would always how tax collectors do. They're supposed to get say 30%, but he would get an extra 20, so he'd charge 50%. So then he'd get a little, pocket thing going in. So people hated him because he knew that. They knew that he was...
Yeah, he was just stole from
sketchy,
him, and there's nothing they could do about it.
So I think whenever we look at Zacchaeus and how he... nobody... nobody liked him. And so whenever Jesus did come into town, people were all like, Jesus, Jesus, look at me. And then Zacchaeus wanted to climb into the tree because, he wanted to see Jesus, but he knew that if he was front row, that Jesus would, look at him wrong.
Yeah. Do you know what a fig tree looks like? The fig sycamore tree?
Is it like I don't know. Something.
I looked this up because I was like, I wonder what kind of tree. It's actually like, you almost can hide in it. It's
Really?
there because there's so much, it's a pretty big tree, but there's a lot of foliage and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, I wonder, too, if, he went up there, one, so he could see, but two,
So he could hide.
he's kind of also trying to hide a little bit, feeling guilty. I don't know if that's true or not. That's speculation, but I wonder. But, yeah, man, that's who Zacchaeus was. He was a sellout. He was a thief, a liar. He was all those things. I think what I find interesting is, because we've talked about how Jesus called him out. He called him by name, said, hey, I'm coming to your house. And what's interesting about that is Jesus chose Zacchaeus before he ever did anything right. Right? Yeah. He chose him in his worst moments, before he made right all the wrongs. That's what he eventually went on to do. But he saw something in him. So why do you think we feel the need that I have to be better before I can go back to church, or I have to do better, I have to get my life right before I can connect with God again? Because I hear a lot of people say that too, and I think it's a wrong assumption. But why do you think we feel that way?
I think it's because we'll go to church and we'll see all these people that we think are perfect, that we think are living the life, they're all going down the right path. And I think most people think that we need to be perfect in order to be a Christian. We have to be following the right stuff, doing the right things to be a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which obviously isn't true.
Yeah.
But naturally, that's what we think. But the truth is, you could look at story after story in the Bible of Peter, Paul, James. You name somebody, they were all full of people who messed up, and God just kept extending His love and extending His grace. And in fact, Paul, who ended up writing most of the New Testament, he wrote something in Romans, and he was a guy who killed Christians.
He murdered.
You don't get much worse than that, I don't think. And yet he says in Romans 8:39, it says, "No power in the sky above or in the earth below, indeed nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord." All right? So this guy who was persecuting the Christians knows he's the worst of the worst, and he was able to say, you know what? There's nothing that can separate God's love from us. And even if the consequence resulted in some kind of a permanent situation, maybe it was something we said we would never do again, and then we did it again. We said, God, I promise this is the last time. I'm never going to do it again. And then we did it again. You ever been there?
I think I've been there way too many times.
I think we've all done. If I look back at my high school years, it's yeah, I did that a lot. Even now.
I'm God, please help me, but...
Yeah, so he knows that we're going to fail. Yeah. And yet he still loves us anyway, because Jesus loves us no matter what. It doesn't matter what we've done. Now, he doesn't want us to stay that way, but that doesn't keep him from loving us. It's not on this sliding scale of, you just have to be good or bad or whatever. That's not how it works. So has there been a time in your life where you've seen this to be true for you? If you've experienced this and the love of Jesus in your life?
Yeah, I have. There's been I feel as a kid growing up, I grew up in church, did all this stuff. My mom was a youth pastor and stuff like that. So I felt I was living the perfect, little Christian boy life. And then whenever you get into high school, it's a whole different ball game. You don't realize from elementary to middle school. So I was
what do you mean by that?
So as a high schooler, you do stuff that you probably would have never guessed you would have done. So I was hanging out with the wrong people, hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I know that if I looked at myself if I was older, looking at myself, that I'd be what are you doing, Why? Like you're turning into this kid that you're not. Like I was turning into a person that I did not want to be. You know,
Right.
like I was always, you know, and I hate to say it, but I was bullying kids. I was doing all this stuff, acting like the cool kid. You know, and I feel like I had a thing, like there was a time where I did the worst and I got in trouble for it. Like I got consequences from like principals and stuff. And so I was like, okay, you know, I'll just stop, you know, being a Christian, you know, because I don't feel like God's helping me do anything. Like I would always pray that he would help my heart to be pure, you know. And so I just felt like, you know, he wasn't doing anything, so I was going to stop. Like honestly, that's what my thought was. And then something happened to where I was like rock bottom, and then all of a sudden I got like I felt him like close to me because I was in rock bottom. I was, you know, living life, doing bad things, making bad choices. And so then I felt like I just heard him one day. I was driving down the road, I heard him one day, and I was like, all right.
So what do you mean you heard him?
So
He talked to you through the radio?
well,
Like Bumblebee?
Well, you know, I feel like whenever I'm driving, it's like my place to just, you know, let everything out. Like I'll talk, I'll, you know, sing. And so I was listening to music like I usually do, but I was actually like listening to the words of the song, which I usually don't do. And so whenever I was listening, it was like, which one was it? It was like, I'm trying to think of the song. It was like, even when it
Just
hurt.
sing it for us, yeah.
I said, even when it hurts like hell, I'll praise you. You know, like that song. I don't know what that song
that is.
It's by Hillsong, but I was like, okay. It's like I was like, whoa. It's like, okay, and I was like, you know, I was going down this path, and I was like, even though I'm hurting, you know, he's still there for me, and he's still, like, you know, it was weird. I just felt something. Like, something hit me.
Okay.
And I was like, you know, I feel like he loves me. Like, I prayed to him, and I was like, I was praying to him, like, Lord, you need to give me some signs, man, because I'm, like, not...
So I'm about to write you
I'm
off.
about to, you know, get away from that. And I was like, I felt like in that moment, whenever I heard that song, I was like, you know, like, he's the one. You know, like, he loves me, he cares for me, and even though I do fail, he still loves me, and he'll still, you know.
So it's almost like in that moment, a switch flipped or something.
It was weird. It's, you know, it's one of those things you can't, like, explain, you know. It's just...
Yeah, I mean, that's God coming in and changing our hearts.
It
And
was like...
You can't describe that.
No, it's hard to describe. But I was like, okay. And so since then I've been trying to, I mean, we obviously don't live perfect lives, but
Right.
I felt like that. My relationship has gotten better through the years, you know.
Yeah. So. And you didn't get yourself right before this happened.
No.
No. It's just God showed up.
No.
Said, hey, time to make a difference.
I think he saw me going down a path that I couldn't see myself going.
Yeah. That's cool. All right, one last question. We'll close this thing out.
I think that was a little deep.
No, I loved it. I think that was great. I do have one question before we get to that, though. Are you the guy that jams out and sings in the car no matter who's around? So when I pull up to you next to you at the stoplight,
yes,
you're just dancing and singing to the top of your lungs?
I am. Like, literally, sometimes I've had, like, days where I'll look over and the person's just staring at me, and I'll look back over and start jamming back out. It's awkward. It really is.
I'm the opposite. I'm the guy, I'll be jamming out until I pull up next to somebody, and then I'll stop.
I'm acting normal.
I'm like, I gotta stop for a second, and then I'll start going, and then I'll start singing again.
Yeah, I am. Yep. I jam out.
That's my insecurities of people judging me. I'm like, why do I care anyways? It shouldn't matter.
I'm in my car. I'm never gonna see this person again.
I know. Why do I care? Makes no sense. All right, last thing. So if someone's watching this and they're struggling with accepting God's love, what advice would you give them?
I feel like that, you know, golly, that's a deep question.
That's a tough one.
Hold on. So, restate it one more time.
All right, so if somebody's watching this and they're kind of going through some of the same things, they've done something wrong, they feel guilty, shameful, whatever it is, maybe they're hiding from God. and they're struggling with accepting God's love and that God actually loves them. So what advice would you give them to help them realize that if Jesus is who he says he is, like he was with Zacchaeus, and it doesn't matter what you've done, he's still going to love you no matter what. What advice would you give them to help them realize that?
Well, I think first off, I feel like we have to reach out. Like, you can't just be like, you can't just be closed heart, you know. I feel like we have to actually be vulnerable in order to, like, for him to.
So what does that look like?
So I feel like we have to have, like, open heart. Like, we have to be talking to him, asking, you know. I don't feel like we have to ask, but I feel like, you know, we need to know that he is, like, I feel like since I was, like, praying to him, like, he knew that I knew who he was.
Yeah.
So I was open-hearted and I knew who he was. So I feel like if we're, like, vulnerable, and I feel like if we talk to him a little bit, I feel like we can come as we are and he'll still accept us. So I feel like no matter where we're at in life, like, you could hit rock bottom, you could be the worst kid, I feel like he'll still find you. I just feel like you have to be vulnerable to it.
Yeah, so you got to be open-minded.
Yes.
You got to open yourself up.
And it'll all happen in his time, you know. Like, I wasn't knowing that he was going to do it right then and there, you know. I thought he was going to do it in some...
I mean, I'm just trying to go get a Sonic drink.
I thought he was going to do it in some cool way, like I'm in church and all of a sudden I feel the Holy Spirit and start dancing, but no. No, he did it right there in the car and I was like, okay, I guess that's how my story goes, you know.
Yeah.
Because I always heard of all these cool stories where, like, you know, a car came out of nowhere and God, like, moved the car. But no.
Yeah.
No, mine was just...
Wasn't that?
No.
You just showed up in a song.
Showed up in a song.
That's all
I'll
right.
take it.
I mean, you never know. I think that's important. So is there anything else you'd add to that? I mean, I know I stopped you on vulnerability, but...
I just think you got to be open-hearted, be vulnerable, and I feel like you have to be patient too. I don't feel like you need to, like, rush stopping being a Christian, you know? Like, if you're struggling with God's love, I feel like you just got to... It's hard to explain. I just feel like we got to be vulnerable to it and be open to God's love. Because he loves you. I mean, he created you, obviously. And if he didn't love you, he wouldn't have created you.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest. But I feel like we just got to be open and he'll show up.
No, I agree. I think a lot of times we almost have these blinders on.
Yeah.
Like, I've talked to so many people, and it's like, well, God's not speaking to me, or God's not doing this, or God's not doing that. And the reality is he was. They just didn't see it.
Yeah.
And I'll point it out, and then they'll just start crying, like, oh, you're right. You know? And it's like, sometimes we just don't see it because we're so caught up in our own guilt or shame or whatever it is that we're missing, like, God reaching out.
I feel like you have to look for it. You know, you can't just...
It's when you open your eyes.
Yes, that's like mine. I was just sitting there listening to Christmas music. I mean, not Christian music, sorry.
Hey, Christmas music?
Christmas music too, but I was listening to Christian music and I was, you know, I was just in my own world and then it rushed down me. So I was like, I felt like me having open eyes, it was able to see him. Yeah.
No, that's good. Well, thanks for being here, man. I've enjoyed it.
I loved it.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Hey, we love you guys. Thanks so much for joining us, and hopefully we will catch you next week. See ya.
Deuces.